picot edges. They're kind of cute and they're easy to do. Want to make some? Stay tuned.
So let's get right to it. You cast on 36 stitches, 12 for each of your needles. And as you're knitting, you just start knitting about 10 rows. And please be careful when you get to your corners. You will have to tug that stitch a little bit just in that first beginning stitch so you can avoid ladders. And if you don't know what ladders are, I do have another video on that, which if you look through my videos, you'll find it. I'm not that adept at technical stuff where I can point and say, oh, here it is up here, go ahead and click it. Don't know how to do that. So knitting 12 rows, and then you get to your picot edge row. So the picot edge is done by knitting 2 strands together, 2 stitches together. And then yarn over, which means you're bringing your yarn from the back to the front, and then you knit the next 2 stitches together. That creates a little eyelet. Yarn over, almost forgot there. And 2 stitches together, yarn over, and you just keep doing that for the whole row. The next row you just knit as normal. And I think according to the pattern after the first set of eyelets for the picot edge, you would knit about 28 rows. And then you can start thinking about creating the hole for your thumb. In the meantime, creating the picot edge, you knit 2 together, yarn over, and so forth. And then you're going to fold it and sew it so that you get that picot effect. Now when you fold the flap, here's one way that I secure it as I'm knitting. I actually fold the flap and then I put my needle through as if I'm going to knit, and then I pick up a stitch from the back flap area and I knit through. That might seem a little bit complicated. It is a bit fiddly to do, but sometimes I do it, and other times I just fold it later and sew it in. So you just pick up a stitch from the back, you pull your needle through, your thread through, and then through the other stitch. And so you're knitting them together. And this is a great technique. I haven't tried it, but I've seen it done in knitting collars for sweaters, where you have a rolled edge on the sweater. And so there you go. Here's some eyelets, and I'm folding it in half. And that's how you create the picot edge. And that's what it looks like when it is knit in together. And from that point, you just continue knitting on. You might even decide that it's a good idea to try it on to see how it fits on your wrist. But I find 36 inches is a good number. Some people go up to 44. You want to try it out yourself and see how it fits. I'm trying to give you sort of a standard number, and 36 usually works with most worsted weight wool. If you're using a thinner wool, like a DK double knit wool, you may want to add about 44 stitches in total and figure out if it's going to fit your wrist or not. But 36 is a good standard. So that's how you create your picot edge. It's pretty simple, really, but it's a neat little trick, I find. You just create that eyelet, fold your garment, your piece in half, and then you've got that nice little edging, and you can use that on hats or the edge of anything. You can even use it on the edge of a sweater if you wanted, on the edge of sleeves on a sweater. It's very versatile. For your thumb, you're going to go back and forth, knit and purl to the whole area for about 10 rows, and that's going to create the space for your thumb. And then you continue on circular. So I've showed you how to do the stretchy cast on, and this is the stretchy bind off, where you knit 2 stitches together and you bring your needle in front of those 2 stitches and just knit them off. So you're still left with 1 stitch that gets combined with the next stitch on the needle. You knit that, Then you bring your needle in through both of those 2 stitches, needle in the front, knit, and pull it off. And that gives you a nice stretchy bind off. Now what I've found when I've knit tops, for example, sometimes that stretchy bind off is a bit ripply, so I alternate a standard bind off and this stretchy one so that I have a bit of stretch but not too tight of an edge and not too ripply. But for this purpose, it works really well. So you put your needle in through those 2 stitches and you knit them off. And that gives you a nice stretchy bind off.
When you're ready, you've got your picots all set up and you've created your extra edge and you've bound it off with a nice stretchy bind off. Then you turn your mitten inside out. Eat your needles. That's not like eating your noodles. Anyway, and you cut off a big long thread and you sew it in just very lightly. Be careful not to get your needle through to the other side. I actually use a sharp needle. I like it because I like to go through the fibers so that I can catch on that way. And I think it's pretty self-explanatory in terms of sewing it down. And by folding that edge, you're showing up the picot edge. Let me just put it on here for a second. See the picot edge? So I'm going to sew this down, secure it all, and that'll be like the final step of my mitten, other than turning it right side out again. When you've reached the final stage of your mitten, you've got your picot eyelets knit in there, and then you've got your extra edge. You turn your mitten inside out and you fold it down so that the little picots actually show up. I'll just put that on for a second. There we go. And your picot edges are showing up, and of course you got the ones at the bottom. This is inside out. So I'm going to take a needle. When you finish off your stretchy edge, you've bound it off, make sure you keep a long thread, and then you just, I have a sharp needle that I use because I like to go through the fibers of the yarn, and you just sew it in there. Keep your fingers underneath so that you can feel, you don't want your needle, big strand of thread going through. Let's keep it all straightened away here. And you just sew it down. That's one of the final steps. Is there another final step? I'm not sure. I think that's it. The final step would be wearing it, I suppose. I'll show you that when I get this sewn down. This time round, I decided to do just a simple little stitch around the opening of the thumb area for the mitten. So I'm just simply doing like a little round stitch. Nothing fancy. I just thought it might finish it off a little bit nicer. When I'm done, I'll show you the whole thing. All right, we're finished. Here it is. You know, the depth that you use here is up to you. I thought, a little bit extra padding in on the palm. Sometimes I bring it right down to the thumb area, but this time I didn't. I just winged it. And my palm area is deeper than my wrist area. You can make them both the same as you want. It's up to you. What I recommend is that you just remember to count your rows so that you can make your corresponding mitten the same, or arm wrist warmer. And there it is. Oh, and I thought I'd give you a little bit closer detail. I sewed around the edge. It's like a buttonhole. I just sewed it around just to finish off the edge nicely, and I think it did. It worked out well. It certainly took care of any gap that might occur on the bottom edge. So, here we go. There's our mitten. Could you put it on upside down? I probably wouldn't recommend that. Unless you really want some extra warmth up there. And, you know, you don't have to put the thumb through the little thumb hole. You can just use it as a wrist warmer. Just scrunch it up there, and it's great. I like them. Hope you do too. You know, the funny thing about knitting is I worry about ladders. Am I going to get ladders in knitting in the round? Am I going to get ladders? Oh, it's kind of a ladder. But there's a way to fix that, actually. If you really had a pronounced ladder up through, you could take a contrasting color thread. I don't have one handy, but and just weave it up through there as if it's part of the design of the mitten. No worries.
Thanks for watching. If you're interested, you can go to Garn Studio and look at some of the other wrist warmers and thumbless mittens.